Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again this evening. Nancy Mroczek here, Mr. John Fahey assisting me this evening.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, nice to have you. The show is called Toward a Quality of Life, and some of you may have seen the 5 previous shows that have been on. Tonight we're going to lay the foundation once again for where we'd like to be going when we use this expression, toward a quality of life. It entails thinking philosophically, psychologically, politically, culturally, commonsensically, experientially. It's just about us living and trying to get more out of what we're living for, trying to take those grains of sand that are our life and make them into something rich and pure and wholesome and meaningful and a life well lived, a life that has worth and value and not something that's just sort of a piece of paper blowing in the wind in the gutter of life, so to speak. Now, in order to proceed with the interactive dialogue, I will pose a question to you, a beginning question for this series. But before I do, as usual, I have to take a little time to make a mention of some of the so many things that I see flying by me in life and in the media in particular, in this country and in the world that don't get said that should be said. Number one is how curious it is that we have antipathy to, supposed antipathy towards genuine healthcare reform. And no matter which side of the issue you sit on, whether you are sitting with a wonderful health insurance policy, whether you get top-notch care at our top-notch hospitals, or whether you are one of the many uninsured people, or whether you are someone in between who can only get some service some of the time, our healthcare system is in terrible crisis. And hospitals are not always the most even, most desirable places to land oneself in. It's a whole new ball game, and we should all be working towards something like a single payer system, something like a common sense healthcare where the physicians and the other health practitioners can be the administrators themselves, can be the one to make the decision, get to know you, roll up their sleeves, give you good health care, and all this other kinds of pressure and bottom line financial be something relegated to other aspects of our financial system. So please let us be sensible about this. It's amazing how our eyes have been made to be smoke-screened over. Number 2, the old growth forest that is in question, the redwood. From the redwood forest, as Woody Guthrie said in his profound song, "This land is your land, this land is my land." People fighting out in the West now to keep those redwoods from being cleared, to keep the brush from within them being cleared and then cause damage to the redwood. Please, people, this is our earth. Now, the Bible, even though I'm not a person who's inclined towards the Bible says that we are the stewards of the earth. To be the stewards of the earth, we must take care of the earth. We are poisoning the earth. We have cars and carbon monoxide polluting the earth. The acid rain is killing the trees. The waters are dirty. The fish are dying. We are the stewards of the earth. We take care of the earth. We don't let something like our petrified forests and our redwood forests go by the wayside. And to the highest bidder, to have the lumber as it is sent overseas to the highest bidder. And then where are we? Where are our trees, which we need to breathe? And one final quick note, please start understanding not to use plastics, and in particular for today, styrofoams. If a restaurant wants to give you a drink in a styrofoam cup, particularly a hot beverage, say, "I object to this," or make them aware that you don't want the styrofoam mixing with the hot liquid and going into your gut and then adding to the trash heap of human non-natural contingencies. Please make a note. Don't accept styrofoam. Don't accept it. Say to people, well, maybe I'll do it this time, but please look into changing how you're serving me something to drink. Finally, vote I hope everybody out there, I don't care where you sit, I don't care what you believe, that nobody can help you, that they're not interested in your problems. They're not, because you're not the squeaky wheel getting the oil. If you make noise, if you come out and you show your clout, it's a proven fact. If you write letters, if you put pressure, if you show that you're there, you will be the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. Everybody must get up and vote. Now, today's question regarding the quality of life, which will sort of set the foundation of where we'll be going, why we're even sitting here talking to you this way, is what are you living for? What are we living for? What is the point? What is the rat race all about? And secondly, should our goals for human life even be examined? Is this a worthwhile endeavor to stop ourselves, get off the merry-go-round, get off the robotic, automatonic kind of way we live, and think and reflect what we're doing, and certainly how we could do it better?
Nancy, I think we should open this up to our home audience. We're cablecasting live right here from the BNN TV studios in downtown Boston. We'd love to hear from you. Please call us at 742-3333. Again, that's 742-3333. Now, those are pretty open-ended questions, and
Yes,
they
sir.
certainly encompass an awful lot of information. As far as the what do you want, are we referring to the health care? Is this in the healthcare situation? Because I was thinking when you were mentioning that, First Lady Clinton, Hillary Rodham Clinton, a couple of years ago tried to implement a national health care program, but unfortunately was unsuccessful because I guess it was so complicated in trying to implement it. But we're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar industry here, and even though some people are insured and others aren't, do you think everybody will be insured eventually at some point? Because we're looking at programs like the welfare program, free health care program, all of these different programs, and hospitals really can't turn anybody away, though, can they?
Well, supposedly not, and up till recently, I know City Hospital did give care to anyone who entered its premises and could not pay, but now you know here in the city of Boston, they've merged with BU Hospital, University Hospital, and so I don't know what that will mean if someone were to try to get free care in the near future. Mr. Yancey, who is a congressperson from Boston, I'm not quite sure what office he holds.
City councilor.
He's a city councilor. I know spoke on this matter when the merging was happening and said it's going to mean that people will be shut out of care, and I tend to think that mergers and financial conglomerations and more and more squeezing of getting more profit out of less infrastructure, certainly doesn't mean more care or abundant care. It most likely obviously means less care. It's true that the financial system is set up not just in terms of health care, but for so many things. It's an interwoven relationship of having a lot of people in the middle and on the top and around the edges.
In other words, it's a big business.
It's a very huge, and it's infiltrated to way more, it's connected to all the other industries. So when we talk about these things, we have to talk about them massively in terms of an entire culture, an entire way that we're going to have to design how we want to live if we want to get out of this system of kind of being at the end of paying, $5 for every half minute's worth of anything we do, from getting a glass of water to breathing some air to having a seat in the park. It's coming down to, pay more. And the ironic thing the point about the health care is that even if you have very good benefits, so to speak, because the system is set up the way it is, physicians cannot just go and practice their art And I mean that scientifically, the beautiful art of medicine. Psychologists cannot practice, psychiatrists cannot practice. They cannot just go, really know you, and do what they're supposed to do. They cannot try innovative things. They cannot experiment with drugs. All these things are being prescribed
regulated.
By the people who are getting the money of the insurance. In order to control, and they connect themselves, for example, with the pharmacy, so then they decide which drugs you'll be allowed to have. They decide which procedures in advance of the doctor ever seeing you should have, given certain set of circumstances. This actually kills innovation. This actually kills science. Science is progressive when people can constantly move ahead, use their eyes and ears and their empirical experience.
Some sort of creativity.
Creativity and knowledge. They have to put themselves to this way. Being a practitioner today is being tied up and having to waste time on the telephone getting authorizations. This goes for even if you have very good care. And how about the impersonalization of hospitals where, people are kind of bodies in a bag. Now, I know there's many wonderful nurses who feel tremendous pain going through the ordeals of people in serious circumstances and often dying. They have to, live these lives. But they also have to live with the techno kind of system that it is, the fast-paced systems where people come, people go, and sort of you're just impersonally sheathed somewhere on a cot, and everything's done in an automatized way, which itself is kind of contradictory to good health. And often you have conflicting test results, or you feel you might not have adequate ones, or it's all too confusing to put together because it's fragmented into different specializations. It's not even good if you have the ideal circumstance. We really have to go towards, now I know Mr. Fahey is a teacher in the Boston school system, and a parallel to that would be for the teachers. In order for teachers to be good teachers, they have to roll up their sleeves, get to know those students, not try to teach them a rote thing that will give them a good test score, but learn about those kids and find their own way of getting through to the children to the best of their ability, drilling them as hard as they can, instead of having a lot of restrictions put around them of how they're to behave, what they should do with the children, etc.
Okay, I'd like to, just in case people are just joining us here on Channel 23, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to give us a call. Our phone number here, we're cablecasting live right here from BNN TV, right downtown Boston. And you can give us a call at 742-3333. That again is 742-3333. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call and you'll be able to ask Nancy a question right here on Channel 23. Nancy, did you want to continue with that? Because I did have one question you may want to talk about. What do you think about nationalization of the health industry? National health. National health care. Ted Kennedy tried to implement that for many years.
National health is like the single-payer system.
But much more federally regulated because the government in its bureaucracy is handling everything pretty much. But of course farming things out to various businesses because they have to handle it.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about farming it out. I mean, do we have to be conglomerated? A lot of things would fare so much better, not just the healthcare, if people could go back to individualized practices, small,
like your family doctor,
small, local, interconnected, but if you have to give contracts to corporations that are continually making themselves, so to speak, more efficient, and they will be making themselves lean.
Right. So we're dealing with cost containment medicine.
See, medicine is something that does not lend itself to getting as many dollars as you can out of the minimum amount of financial input. It just doesn't work that way. Now, on the other hand, it shouldn't be an exorbitant thing, but a physician goes through a lot to be a physician and should be paid handsomely. It's not the worst thing in the world to have a brain surgeon make a fairly big salary if you saw what a medical doctor had to give up to become that brain surgeon oftentimes. I know there are a lot of other kinds of stories, but there are also some stories where, you know, if you saw what people had to go through and their liabilities and what they take into their hands to do what they do, it's not necessarily that inordinate. But what I'm saying is, if people could just work without the pressures, be given an honest wage for honest work, and be free to do what their knowledge would dictate, would lead them towards trying to do to the best of their ability. And we'd also have, see, the point of this show, Toward a Quality of Life, is to get towards a more human universe. And this is kind of a tall order, almost an impossible order in a techno and automated society, to go towards a more human kind of culture. I mean, it's kind of like beating your head against the wall to try to get to that. But you know, being more human would make us happier, would make our health work better. We don't do it to get our health to work better. I don't believe in that. You do it just to do it. But you know, trying to become more human and know each other and relate with each other and help each other on a personal level, a more personal level, and on a more consistent basis rather than random, you know, people as strangers to each other, just meeting each other in split-second scenarios. You know.
Before we go on, did you want to mention what the words are in the background here,
Yes,
in case our viewers would like to know what that is?
I put these posters up very often when we have the show. One of them says relate, which is to engage in genuine communication with someone. And I dare say that there's very little relating going on. You know, in fact, over the years, the word relate has kind of changed to mean I can't relate to that. I can't get off on that. I can't understand what something means, or I don't resonate to it. It is, the word actually has changed. But to relate, like a child to its parent, is to just talk for no particular reason, with no goal in mind, not because you share a project.
Just to talk.
Just to talk. Not because you're going to have a show together in the future. Not because you've got some golf game that will help you to have a network further down the line in the future. Not because you hope to achieve you know, some information from somebody, but just to talk. This is what is so lacking. And that's what fulfills children, that's what fulfills seniors, and that's what fulfills us in the in-between years.
And I guess a general statement could be, and you probably would agree with it, that the breakdown of communication is the result of a lot of our problems today.
Yes, it would be a long way to prove this. It can be proven. It's a very tedious task to prove it. But the further, first of all, to be healthy, we have to relate. Number one, psychologically healthy, spiritually healthy, wholesome, we have to relate. Number two, the further away we get from relating, the less healthy we become. So I think what we know of ourselves speaks for itself.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Yeah, and it also speaks for our children, who are often behaving in monstrous ways now that people can't comprehend, unfortunately. And they're not getting that relating. You know, relating doesn't have to be verbal relating, like people relate with their pets. You relate, you understand each other, you have rapport and camaraderie. And it's a joy to see each other. You share misery, you share pain. You share if you got a parking ticket. It's important to share that. That is more important to share than if you won the Nobel Prize. The trivia of everyday life, the small things that we all do every day, the incidentals, are the true substance of life.
The little things that count.
That's what makes up the life, and that's what makes us or breaks us. The straw that breaks the camel's back, it's all the little straws. It's not the big events. It's the little ones.
Okay.
Then we have this other poster called contingency, which sometime I may go into further, but contingencies, a conditional event to which behavior is incidental or upon which behavior is dependent, which means that that's a whole other subject, but generally speaking, what we are, who we can be, how we are, is occasioned by our interpersonal and structural and physical and financial and social environment. The context of all the things that go into affecting us as walking, talking, living organisms have a result of what we act like. And we can arrange those things. When we become aware, we're not passive victims to any kind of way. We don't have to be like anything, like if radiation pours out of a nuclear power plant, we don't have to just sit there and be irradiated. Or if traffic is 1 to 2 hours long and every day we must, I saw that we have a caller, every day we must go through that. We don't have to just like throw in the towel and just go along not thinking that every day we will sit for 2 hours chugging along in 90-degree heat, having our radiator. You know, we don't have, we can arrange, we can be thinking about contingencies and arrange them to our benefit. Yes, I'm being signaled here that we have a caller.
Okay, can we have your question, please?
Brian in East Boston, I want to know what does it mean toward a quality of life?
Brian, did you say your name was? I think Brian.
He said Brian, yes.
Brian wanted to know what it meant toward a better quality of life. Thank you, Brian, for calling.
Okay, actually, because the premise is that life is not too very qualitative now. It's kind of deteriorating, and this is shown in polls, so to speak, if you want to take that as an example, that people are dissatisfied and unsettled. They're not content. They know no matter where they sit, in terms of many of the variables that we rank people on, there's one thing everybody has in common, is that they're not feeling that life is all that it could be. They're not content. They're not settled. They're dissatisfied. So, and in fact, the conditions that people have to endure are becoming more pressured, more stressed, more life and death, more hard-edged, if you will. So what we're talking about is, let's bring up all these things as a community of people together. Let's start talking about arranging contingencies so that what we get out of the way our environment is structured brings out relationship, brings out health, brings out contentment, brings more satisfaction, brings out, back to our question today, meaning. Gives some meaning and sense of purpose to life. The meaning being becoming more human, knowing each other, talking with each other, taking time to smell the roses, knowing that there is a natural world out there and being part of it. You know, not having to live with guilt or a sense that, you know, a lot of things have been missed and that you haven't done what's right, you know, before your life has passed. That you have lived it as a fully human person. Okay. We're so far down and so far away from
our potential, maybe?
Exactly, from having a system that works to people being the best and the sweetest they could be, that we almost have an infinite horizon for how we could rearrange and think about and organize, you know, what life could be like.
Well, that's interesting. But what I'd like to do is tell our home audience once again, in case you've joined in late, please give us a call here at Toward a Quality of Life, 742-3333. Again, that's 742-3333. We're cablecasting live right here from BNN TV, right downtown Boston, so you'll be able to give us a call and ask right on the air. That was a very interesting last segment that you did about reaching our potential. But don't you think that there are external factors that lead us to behave that way?
External factors such as what?
People stress, people at their jobs and things of that nature. I mean, it's fine to say, well, it's okay, it would be great to be like this, but...
To be how?
Well, like you had mentioned, to reach your full potential, to be sweet, to be everything going the way you want it to be a complete person, so to speak. But with the tension that goes on, with the stress, with the everyday aspect of living, some people are just too stressed out to stop and smell the roses because they're so involved in doing this and involved in doing that they just don't think about that.
Well, this is precisely the point, that we don't have to, if we think about it, and everybody got very serious and everybody's brain cells started agitating towards thinking that there's a higher order existence to be gotten just by a little human effort and a little human design, then we wouldn't have work schedules that keep us running night and day away from our families, that keep, or places of work that keep us on highways stuck in traffic, or systems of communication that keep us phone tagging back and forth. It has to be a massively thought out redesign of how we're living, because that's precisely what's killing humanity.
Do you think it's achievable? Yes, perhaps.
Well, let's put it this way. Is good achievable? You know, is evil achievable? I'm not really a believer in good and evil, but it does seem sometimes like a lot of bad things happen, and you know, the good is kind of getting stomped to the side. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't choose to try to do the thing that is best. It becomes awfully hard. Similarly with this, I mean, just because it may seem like something so far away to imagine, wouldn't be a reason to not put forward the ideas and build awareness to try to go towards that goal. I mean, you know, it may be very far-fetched indeed, and if so, it would only be in keeping with the cynical attitude where people believe very little is possible. I mean, that's part of the whole stress pattern. People believe the worst, and they ridicule anything that is soft, and you know, everybody wonders what's the real story behind it. There's got to be a twist to this. In fact, the media to a degree is responsible for constantly pounding us with a twist on what seems very normal and very content and seemingly okay, always has this side that you would never imagine, and it's conditioning people's brains, has a very big effect. Another thing is the media have a very big effect conditioning people's brains to see that, or think, or just, you know, sort of be passive and go downhill with what seems to be a downhill ride.
Now, I know that we're trying to be very structured on this program, and you have 4 different topics that you want to speak about. Is that correct?
I just have one really as far as people calling in. I just wanted to mention about the couple things that I did in the beginning, because so many things go by and you don't see people stand up and say in plain English, let's get sensible about this, you know. So sometimes I like to just say a few things about issues that are in the news and that are impinging on our lives. But the main idea for today is I'd like people to call in, if they would, and sort of give us an idea of what they think they live for. What's the purpose? What's the point? And should we even be looking at our human goals? Should we even bother to talk about it?
Nancy, I think we have a caller right now. Can we have your question, please? Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Just barely, but I'll
Okay,
give you my question.
we can hear you fine, so you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Nancy and for you.
Okay.
I feel that there's an apathy out there today, and it's very hard communicating, especially between the younger generation and the older generation. And I was wondering if Nancy had any ideas as to how that could be improved. You know, years ago, the elders in the family were revered, and there was kind of a communication between young and old. And I was wondering what Nancy's thoughts were along the line of to make a better quality of life if at least that communication.
Right, the nuclear family seems to have...
I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
Okay. That was a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
It's a great question. You know, when I first had a few things to say, when I said about healthcare and styrofoam, I also had a third which I didn't bother to say because I wanted to, you know, kind of keep us focused, but it's not. It all interrelates. And what I wanted to say was, I get so heartbroken about our angry children and how they are misunderstood. Now, for those of you who are adults out there, you have a point of view too, but I want to bring out a point. This would be, for example, talking about teens, because I sometimes see talk shows where the teens come with the parent and they're made to look shameful or wrong, and people go, ooh, because they hit, because they won't listen, because they rebel. And I wanted to point out that sociologically, life moves on, and for people out there who are veterans, say, of World War II, either by participating in the war or having been in that era, you know that as time moved on, you had to break away from your parents, what they did, and do things differently. Those of us, as am I, who are second-generation immigrants to this country. Then in the 50s was a revolution, in the 60s, etc. And every time in this culture and in other cultures, history moves on. And don't forget that we're living in a techno world. And what the teenagers are going through and the young children are going through, we can't even recognize how they perceive. Their diet is that television with fast images, the internet, etc., with fast images bombarding them. Their life of going to school is not the small community where someone hand holds them and they gently walk and at a slow pace. They learn to say a prayer or salute the flag. We cannot even imagine their perceptions, their conditionings as they walk this earth. So, and time moves on. And I'll say, because we have another caller I'm so happy about that, time moves on. And the kids today, the psych today, the thing today for the kids is they're not going to take the parents' troubles. We as the older generation would expect our youngers to respect us, to love us. If we aren't the models of understanding, if we have our own troubles and we just expect respect, we're not going to get it in most instances, because the kids will not take the blame. They will not take the stuff from us. They have enough of their own. I heard one teenager saying she's not going to take her mother's guilt, that her mother herself has lots of problems and wants her to understand that. The kids won't do that. And remember, when you're the parent, that you're the model. And if you're not available relating, unfortunately, if you have to be working, then you're not a model. And if you're not a model, you're not in the framework of the younger person.
Nancy, I don't want to lose this next call.
Yeah,
This person's
okay.
been hanging on, so let's take this
so
next call.
It's a very long story, but
Hello.
that's just something to think about for...
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, so you can keep talking.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all, but let me just, I would like to ask a question with a psychological thrust to it.
I think Nancy would enjoy answering that.
Okay, thank you very much. My question to the doctor is, does the doctor attach any legitimate value to self-help books and the works of TV self-help gurus such as Tony Robbins? And I wondered, have you read and been influenced for the good by any such books? And if so, could you supply us with some titles? I'm going to hang up and hear you off the TV.
Thank you for calling.
Great question.
We have a lot of good questions tonight.
I believe I know who Tony Roberts is. I'm not sure, but I believe I do. And I surf television a lot. I know everything that's on the television, and when I see Tony Roberts, I flick right by. But I do know that he's making a lot of money. I believe he's even counseled the president. I'm not sure at one time. I'm not sure if he's the person who's done that. Personally, I never liked self-help books. I found them to be too mundane, too sort of superficial. Once I did read a book called about intimidation, something about, you know, the art of intimidating people. Someone wrote about how you push people around. Oh, and I did read Norman Vincent Peale's. What is that? What is the name of that book? That was a good book. That is a good book.
Positive Thinking.
Norman Vincent Peale said, Power of Positive Thinking, he said that the way that you get ahead in life, and I don't mean this in some kind of crass way, but the way you can move with people is to listen to them and forget yourself. While most of us want people to recognize us, you know, we can all see inside ourselves that we have a great need to be recognized and wanted. And his theory was, if you can let go of, you know, worrying about people knowing who you are and how good or great you are, and just focus on them, you'll go far in life. I did read that. But still, I look at that book even as at a sort of certain level of you know, a certain level of a book. It's not at a very high level. You know, it's kind of practical. Generally, I'd say, you know, I have not used self-help books, but what I have done, and I've you know, tried to find out about myself and people. I have read a lot of very deep books. I've read libraries of there is so much knowledge in literature. Read the great literature. Read all the great authors. You will learn the meaning of human life by reading great authors. Read the great thinkers. Read, you know, anybody who takes, it doesn't have to be a very rugged or hard to read book, but anyone who takes, you know, does a really good job with his or her subject. Maybe there are some self-help books that do. Do you know any self-help books that do a good job?
When you were mentioning the literature, I was thinking back to the Greek and Roman philosophers, Aristotle and people of that nature.
Yeah. Now, those could be like
the politics, for example. We mentioned politics.
Too difficult to, you know, to labor through. I'm saying you can even read books that you'll be engrossed in that will teach you a lot about life and about yourself. You go to, right. I don't know, you know, actually bookstores carry less and less high-quality books. That's an unfortunate problem. You know, the chains, they're having more and more these kind of whiz-by kind of fly-by-night books. Do you sort of think that they're like dime store novel? Some of it is. I mean, even a lot of these bestsellers, and sometimes they're great. Like ones, for example, I mean, they don't all have to be, you know, like I say, very serious books. I read the life of Helena Rubinstein once, I remember, who was the great magnet for cosmetics, right. Remember? That was a very interesting book, very easy to read. She's certainly somebody that made a success out of herself. Biographies can be very interesting. You can learn too. But I'm afraid, you know, the levels of what goes for what they call knowledge, it's not really knowledge, is not too deep. So I don't favor self-help. Well, we'd like to thank that caller. That was an excellent question. That was a good question. And I'd like to, during this last part of the program, Nancy is here and she'd love to speak with you. Give us a call. We're cablecasting live right here from BNN TV in Boston, downtown Boston, and we'd love to hear from you. Call us with your comments, suggestions, or questions. Our phone number here is 742-3333, 742-3333. And no sooner did I say that, we have a call. Can we have your question, please? Hello. Can we have your question? Well, it seems like that person may be trying to get through, but we'll wait until they get through. Did you want to talk on another topic before? No, you know, could I presume to ask you? Sure. Do you think that our goals as human beings should be examined? Well, it's certainly talked about a lot today. I think, though, what you were talking about, I was thinking as you were speaking, to stop and smell the roses and try to give ourselves a better quality of life with everything going on.
it seems like everybody seems to be too busy, and to sit back and re-examine that and to take a different priority in our life, I think would be kind of difficult at this point.
What could be a priority?
Well, for example, people who have, let's say, for example, people who have a large mortgage on a home. We'll just take an example. Somebody's out working, they have a large mortgage on a home, and they're an executive and they're working 80, 90 hours a week. Well, of course, they're spending so much time at the office and so much time with business that perhaps they are neglecting their family. Perhaps those children don't have a full-time father. Perhaps, that perhaps there's just too much going on in that person's life that would not allow that person to just to know what's going on in his own life and not, take stock of what's going on, or even like smell the roses, as we said. But how does he change that? I mean, he knows that he has all of this going on. How does he change that? I mean, does he go out and get another job, or does he become like David, Thoreau, with Walden's Pond, and just throw his hands up? I mean, what's the solution to that?
You can change your life. You can make choices. Life is a compromise. You're not always going to get everything. You have to examine your goals. See. You have to say, well, what am I ending up with what I have here? What am I giving up? Mm-hmm. What am I ending up with? And you can always shift and rearrange what you're doing to get some or more or a lot of what you really want in comparison to what you're stuck with. On the other hand, I would advise people to be very careful when you do take steps like have children or go to, take jobs, take positions, or have relationships. You've got to be very careful and think into the future what this is going to mean. A lot of times we get stuck in the positions that we're in because we've kind of stumbled into them, not, analyzing what it's going to mean to us, especially, for example, having children. You see people in inordinately unuseful circumstances, in triangles and all kinds of unsupportive circumstances, talking about they're going to have a child or they want to have a child, not thinking twice. So thinking is very important, to think, just generally speaking. And secondly, by starting an agenda where this stuff means something to you, you will be talking with your peers, and together people will start to think about how can we rearrange things as a society, how can we rearrange what our work is and where we do it and how we transport ourselves and how we feed ourselves and whether we have huge lines in the grocery and how the food is distributed and what it costs us and who controls it, so forth and so on. So it's got to start somewhere. It starts with the individual, and the more individuals that are doing it,
this is the
point.
Right.
This is the point. Not so much that we organize and do it as a group, but if we all were thinking about it and all doing it, it would be done. Mm-hmm. If we each carried with us more cognizance and more awareness, it would be done.
I guess the main thing here, the main word essentially, is to be aware.
To be aware. This is what we're trying to do.
To be aware.
To become increasingly aware that no life, no matter where it is at whatever time, has to be the way it is. That's it. It's sewn up. It's a prison. It's a jail cell. And I have met people, and you hear their stories all the time, who change their lives. Who feel stuck. It is possible.
Yeah, that might be an interesting thing to have some of our viewers call up, and if they've been in a situation like that, thinking back, they could call us up here and share that story with us.
Mm-hmm. And you can always, you can make a list and a sort of a map for yourself and see where you're going and what you're getting out of doing the things you're doing and what you're left with at the end of a week, a month, a year. Right. And where you could make changes to get some of this quality into your life.
Now, during the last quarter hour of this program, did you want to talk about a different subject? I mean, it's the same subject and the same topic, but take it from a different angle or discuss something else. I know you mentioned the styrofoam cups and the redwood forests, but where we have 10 minutes left, and actually this last 10 minutes, I think we can take a phone call. Can we have your question, please? Hello. Maybe this is the call that we didn't get a few moments ago. Can we have your question?
The one that got away.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Doctor, and good evening, Mr. Fahey.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for calling. It's a
Okay,
pleasure
my
to hear
pleasure.
from you.
I can't hear you too well, so I'll just ask my question
Fine,
and then get up.
because we can hear you fine.
Okay, fine, thank you. We're such a sports-oriented culture, and some sports fans, and of course, fan is short for fanatic.
Right.
Some sports fans seem to substitute watching TV and spectator sports for real life.
Right.
Some even intellectualize their addiction by quoting the old saw that sports are really a metaphor for our life. I'd like to hear the doctor's viewpoints on this matter. Thank you.
Okay, that was a good question.
Sir,
Thank you.
before you hang up, is he gone?
So you're still with us?
Okay.
No, he's gone.
Is the question, are sports a metaphor for life, or
Yes, too
is it that we are so saturated? Both.
Both, I think. People
Number
are
one,
so caught up with it.
I'm not a sports person, okay, but I do think sports are a metaphor for life. Very interesting. Football, I think, is I don't really understand football. My camera people here know about football, but I think from what I can tell about football is somewhat the way males do aggress against. It's a way of metaphorically, playing out what goes on in the jungle, so to speak. Similarly, fighting is wonderful. The fights, people are aggressive. I'm not necessarily a Freudian person, but Freud told us long ago that sublimation is a uniquely human way to get rid of what we have, basic aggressive impulses. So when we can put them into a boxing and everybody can watch it and even draw blood, it's a way for the culture to displace and sublimate this aggressive urge. So it has this constructive aspect to it and does reflect the aggressive nature underneath. So this is true. On the other hand, the sports as in denial, the sports as in people watching it passively, making their whole life wrapped up in one or two heroes, one or two or three games, either sports people or people who are celebrities in movies. This is sad. This is sad to wrap oneself up that this is what you instead of you living your life, instead of you being out there, for example, and kicking a ball around, breathing some fresh air, or getting aggressive in some kind of formal way, some sanctioned way, or meeting with people, or just living more personally, developing more, getting a better quality of life, talking to people, relating. Instead of doing that, you're sort of in denial, wrapped up, totally substituting, like a beer, like a couch, like a television set, substituting something to fill your time with. It is probably gone too far, and it's certainly often gone too far then with the parents expecting children or prepping children to oftentimes be their lottery ticket through sports too. This happens.
But they're
a lot.
also living vicariously through them too.
Parents prepping the children pressure-wise, inordinate, to be the next big player, which most of them will not. Doing this to children, changing from a sport, which is what it's originally intended to be, into some
another big business as well.
A business and a substitute for just really living and experiencing. Yes, we are a sports and celebrity crazy culture. We take a few people or a few things and make them into dizzying substitutes of experience for us living ourselves.
Does that mean these people the people that do this almost have a void in their life and they have to substitute?
Well, I think you can get a void in your life if you don't want to face things. You can jump into it seems to creep up, and you kind of get, you might be born into it, and you move along that. I know we're kind of running out of time, and I do want to say a few things before we leave. But we are gone overboard on sports, and we are gone overboard on our heroes. As praiseworthy as many of them are for the people that they are and what they endure, even they would say, living the lives they do, that we've gone overboard on living our lives through them I say, let's live our lives better right here, right now. We are the celebrities right in this studio. You are the celebrities right out there in Boston and Cambridge. It's your life that matters. It's your experience on the street right now. Michael Jackson could be walking with you right on the street. It's you or Michael. It's all the same thing. It's us right now that counts. Let's not look to, you know, something aside of ourselves. Let's live, really live. Let's get involved and really live our lives to the most that it can be. Okay, now I'm going to wrap it up. I've got 5 minutes to go here.
And I'd like to mention, just before we wrap it up, thank you for all of those calls.
I love those calls.
Thank you for calling.
I will continue in 1997, and I'll give you those dates as soon as I have them. So get those calls ready, including to answer the question, what are you living for? And should you even care what you're living for? Should you just get up, have a glass of milk, burp, get in your car, face the traffic, say a few nasty words, come home exhausted with your head spinning, pull a frozen dinner out of the refrigerator, and go to sleep and get up again in the morning? Please. Now, finally, once again, vote. V-O-T-E. Get out and vote, no matter who you are, no matter where you sit. Get up and make a choice. Lesser of two evils, whatever you want to call it. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, and until you get in there and start being spoken for, nothing will ever happen for you. You must act for your own life.
And
Also,
that's November 5th, Nancy.
November 5th.
November 5th.
And register right now. Find out how to register if you're not registered to vote. And also there is a information for voters. I think you could get this in the library, any public library. Ballot questions. There will be 2. The one I'm concerned about is number 1, which is to vote to ban the leg hold traps that they trap animals with, like crocodile steel jaws that grab the animal and break their leg off, or they have to chew their leg off to get free, and it traps all animals indiscriminately, and it's so cruel. And we love animals. We don't want them in the laboratory. We don't want them experimented on. We love our animals. When you love animals, you love life, you love people. And finally, it's beautiful out there. We're going to stop. Finally, it's beautiful out there. It is autumn. The leaves are falling. Some of the days have been so precious. Get away from your computers. Your computer is not nature. Get out. Feel nature every day. Try to get some air. Go with your children somewhere if you can. Try to make such a life. It is a sin to ignore nature, and I'm not being religious with you when I say that. I'm using that as a metaphor. And listen to the wind. Who has seen the wind? Who has heard the wind? Notice nature. Thank you. Best of everything to you. Please tune in. We love you. Let's get something better going right here, right now on the streets of Boston and Cambridge. Thank you.
Well, thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. It was an interesting show, and I'd like to thank all the people that watched us.
It's fun and it's one, it's us cosmic powwow, cosmic powwow.